Hello, my name is Thomas Pink. I'm Professor of Philosophy at King's College London, and I'm going to give you a short series of lectures on free will. I want to begin by saying what free will is. And the most important thing about it is that it's a kind of power, a power that human beings seem to possess over their actions. So let me say a little about power in general, and then about free will in particular. Power is a very important phenomenon, and our idea of it is a very important philosophical idea. The idea of a power is a special kind of capacity. It's not any old capacity, it's a capacity to make things or prevent things from happening. It's a capacity to produce or even determine outcomes. One very important power in nature isn't peculiar to human beings at all. It's something we found all over the world, and it's called causation. Supposing I take a brick and hurl it at a window, that brick has a very clear capacity. It has the capacity to produce a certain outcome when it hits the window. It makes the window break. And so there are lots of other cases of causation as well. Fire can heat and melt ice, and so forth. Free will looks as though it's, in one respect, very like causation. It's another capacity to make things happen. You and I can make our actions happen. We can determine what we do. But it's also a highly peculiar kind of power. Look again at that brick as it's about to hit the window. There's only one thing the brick is going to do as it moves towards the window. It's going to make the window break. But that's not like the power we possess over our actions. With respect to our actions, we very importantly have the power under any given set of circumstances to do more than one thing. And we report the power by using expressions that involve just this very idea of being able to do more than one thing. We might say, it's up to me what I do. It's up to me whether I raise my hand or lower it. I'm in control. And what we have here is the idea of a special kind of power. It's a capacity to determine, under given circumstances, more than one outcome. I have the capacity at one and the same time either to determine that my hand goes up, or that my hand stays where it is, or maybe that my hand goes down. I've got the capacity to determine whether I cross the road or stay where I am. Philosophers call this power a power over alternatives. It's a capacity to determine alternatives by way of outcomes. And the use of the term freedom is designed to pick out this idea of alternatives. We're free to do more than one thing. The alternatives are up to us. But that's very unlike ordinary causation. Ordinary causes can, under given circumstances, only do one thing. There's another very important feature of this power. It's not just a power to determine whether I raise my hand or lower it, or cross the road, or stay where I am. These actions that I've just described to you involve limb motions, and you can actually see them happening. You can see my hand going up, or it's staying where it is. You can see me crossing the road, or staying where I am. But there's something else that we can control besides these, what philosophers often call external or voluntary actions. Voluntary because they're in effect of a prior will to perform them, where this term will picks out something that goes on in our heads, something that involves taking a decision or forming an intention to do these things. When I take a decision or form an intention, I'm forming a psychological state in my mind, a state of intention, that motivates me or moves me to raise my hand or lower it, to cross the road or stay where I am. We talk of by having an intention to raise my hand. That intention then causes my hand to go up and satisfies or fulfills the intention. And Intentions are formed by decisions to perform one voluntary action or another, decisions to raise my hand or lower them. And this capacity to take decisions or form intentions is what philosophers have traditionally called the will. Now, the important thing about the will is that we think that not only do we control whether our hand goes up or whether it stays where it is, or whether we cross the road or stay where we are, we also control whether we decide to do these things. So it's not just up to me whether I raise my hand or lower it. I've got a capacity to decide which of these I do, and it's up to me what decision I take and what I decide to do. So prior to the action of raising my hand or lowering it, I can, it seems, perform a little mental action in my head of deciding to raise my hand or deciding to lower it, and I control which of these actions I perform too. That's why we call this problem of the power of freedom the free will problem, because we have a natural understanding of freedom as a power that starts off as a power over the exercise of the will, over the exercise of our capacity to take decisions and form intentions. And so freedom is immediately exercised by us as a freedom of the will. And it looks as though if we didn't have the capacity to take decisions and control what decisions we took, we wouldn't have freedom at all. Imagine that the motivations that lead you and move you, the psychological states that move you to raise your hand and or lower it, weren't decisions that you controlled, were just sort of passive feelings that come over you. So what determines you, moves you to raise your hand is a sort of urge that you have no control over, that just pushes you into raising your hand or lowering it. Well, thinking of your motivations that way, as urges that just come over you outside your control, it's very hard to think of what they determine you to do as still within your control. It would seem that you were gripped by passions outside your control and not in control of your actions at all. So it seems very important to our understanding of freedom that it involves and depends on a capacity to take decisions in our heads where these decisions are active motivations that we really control.